Justin Marshall joins us, 81 tests for the All Blacks, calls it for Sky Sport as well. Marshy, welcome back.
Super Rugby.
Sorry, I just think there was a technical malfunction. I'll ask you again. Good morning, good afternoon, welcome to the show.
Yes, good afternoon, mate. You got me okay?
Got you loud and clear there. Let's start at the top then, and that's the Chiefs winning, taking care of business, and comfy it was against the Hurricanes as well. But the talking points from that game and also the Force versus the Brumbies is the fact that players were rested, top players were rested, and and that upset the Brumbies with the Force winning that. But the Chiefs against the Hurricanes, this is a Chiefs machine that just rolls on and on, huh?
Yeah, it certainly does. But I do feel that the argument of players having to be rested at certain times of the season, you've got to kind of question with the validity of that, because I think we really got denied a genuine contest. That if the Hurricanes were at full strength, when you take some key players out of the mix, it does make a difference. The Chiefs, methodical, very good. They've got good squad depth, and they looked every part that the side that'll go all the way to be hosting a final. They're very efficient, and even in atrocious conditions, some of their skill set was really high.
Yeah, look, the way that their points differential works at the moment, people, and the fact that they've got a couple of games to go, and those games are against the Brumbies away and then the Force, well, you'd expect them definitely to win that Force game, and so that will probably be enough to get themselves the top spot. Crusaders in at second now, and their 2 games left to go, New South Wales and then away in Wellington at the Hurricanes. So, again, 1 and 2 for those 2 teams?
You'd probably think so. The Crusaders will, I think, be quite thankful that there's a few teams that have opened the door for them, because they were in a reasonably precarious position. But the Hurricanes dropping their game against Drua, really helped them out. And obviously the Brumbies losing at the weekend has equally made the path for them a lot easier, So the fact that other teams have allowed them to go past them on the points table at the right stage of the season for the Crusaders, yeah, you certainly think that, they've got a couple of tough challenges. They've got the Waratahs this weekend, who are on a real momentum roll. They've got lots of players back, and they're starting to play some pretty good rugby. And then equally, they've got to go the final weekend to play the Hurricanes in Wellington. So that it's not without some difficulty, but you would imagine that they should negotiate at least one of those games and possibly a bonus point out of the other, which will get them that second spot.
Justin, just on that, and the Crusaders are one team. We know that Scott Barrett, the rest of rotation, hasn't worked for him because, he's been asked to play every game because that's absolutely what he's had to do with the injuries and everything else. I go back to that Force versus Brumbies, and I can't remember who the name of the hooker was for the Force, but he was sending little puppy emojis to the Brumbies saying, "Oh, you're resting all your big dogs. I hope you get a nice neck massage." The reason that I'm bringing that up is because the players are laughing at the other players for the fact that they are rested. We've talked about this before, but as a past player yourself, I just can't believe that our top guys don't want to play against the best teams. That's what prepares you in World Cup year, isn't it?
Yeah, it does, and they do want to play against the best teams. I would imagine Ardie Savea at the weekend. That's what gets him out of bed. The opportunity to go to Hamilton against the leading team in the competition, rolling your sleeves up and getting stuck in. Now, I thought that the Chiefs pretty much, to a degree, outmuscled a very resilient Hurricane side at the weekend, and where they got most of their change was inside the 22 when Retallick and co just rolled their sleeves up. Taukiaho was outstanding, and they just got stuck in, and they won the physical battle in that area. Now, would they have won that if Ardie Savea was standing in front of them? Absolutely, I think the big players want to be playing the big games, and there has to be more thought put into what games they do get rested for and when they do play. The Brumbies probably thought that they could go down with still quite a strong side, having needed to rest a few of their top players and still get the job done against the Force. But, you think of the Force sitting there in Perth, which is never an easy place to go, and it's kind of a little bit of disrespect, and I'm sure that's what motivated the Force players, yeah.
Yeah, and of course it would be. You just ask yourself, your top guys aren't turning up to play? Well, what, are we chop liver or something? It does give you an extra motivation. It must do, doesn't it? And also, I know I'm very old school on this, and I don't have a sports science background, so therefore, I don't know what I'm talking about. But I would actually think when it comes to players who are at the top of their game, like when you were playing, that you get to decide yourselves when you need a rest or if you want a rest. And if you don't feel like having a rest, well, why the hell do you have to have a rest?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And you know your body as well. You know, when you're young, you're starting to grow into your body to a degree and starting to learn how to be a professional. But when you're sort of 2 to 3 years into the game, you know what gets you motivated during the week and the areas you need to work on, the areas you need to back off on. And you just have those conversations with your strength and conditioning and fitness people and coaches to a degree, and you just get yourself primed to play. And the other side of it is, Marty, when you're playing good rugby, you just want to continually get out there and keep playing. You don't want to back off. You don't want to have to rest and not go out there and continue your good vein of form, because that is just sitting back and allowing another person to put pressure on you in your jersey and equally stifling your momentum. It's like anything. You've got limited time in the jersey, and if you're playing good rugby, there's nothing wrong with your body. Why should you have to sit out just because somebody somewhere sitting in an office has done a whole lot of statistics and correlated information and said, no, by this stage, you definitely need a rest? It's like, well, I don't.
Yeah, I don't. So, I don't feel like I do. Yeah. All right. Justin Marshall is with us as we're talking about Super Rugby from the weekend. And I'm going to save the best till last, which is actually the worst till last, which is the Highlanders. I don't know whether you watched that game. That was just dreadful. A terrible advertisement for the sport in every single aspect. But I'm just going back to what you mentioned about the Waratahs, who are on a bit of a roll at the moment. Justin, they've only won 6 and they've lost 6. But as it comes into the last couple of weeks of the comp and then we get into the finals, I guess what I'm trying to gear at is when you look at the Reds, you look at them, you look at the Force and the Force beating the Brumbies. Are any of those teams capable, do you think? Because that's probably where the top 8's going to finish where it is now, unless the Highlanders or Drua can do something spectacular. Are those Aussie sides capable of a one-off upset against our guys come finals time?
Yeah, absolutely they are. And look what happened to the Chiefs, against the Reds. And they're probably the weaker of the sides apart from the Force. They're just so inconsistent, but they've got quality players. And if they turn up on the day, they're more than capable of putting in a performance that wins them a game against the odds. No doubt the Brumbies are the premier side in Australia, and they will continue to go well, and they'll be a really tough challenge for whoever has to face them. But absolutely, the Waratahs are a side that could come over and upset anybody. The Crusaders will need to be on song at the weekend because this Waratahs side has really hit its straps. They've got quality Australian internationals across the board. They've got guys like Michael Hooper, who's just a winner. He just wants to go out there and win rugby games. He wants to compete. They've got some real firepower out wide. And they're a side, absolutely, that could cause trouble too. In fact, talking to Rod Caper about it, he said they're actually peaking at the right time. They're getting good players back. They didn't play that well early on, but they sort of learnt that they had to play to their strengths, and they're starting to do that. He said they're a side that will cause some headaches to people come finals time should they make it, and it looks like they probably will.
So the Waratahs, they just beat the Drua, they beat the Rebels before that, they beat the Reds before that. So that's 3 in a row, and the Highlanders before that, four in a row. But when you look at all of those teams, they're all teams that you'd expect a good side to beat, right?
Yep. But they should have equally, the week before that, beat the Brumbies. I watched that game, and they were the better side. They just lost their mojo for about 15 minutes late in the second half, and the Brumbies sort of got past them at the post. But that's never an easy place to go, Canberra, and the Brumbies were at full strength, and the Waratahs were the better side in that game for 65 minutes. So since then, some of the games where they've struggled a little bit in the past, they've put those consecutive wins together. Yep, totally agree with you, and it's a valid point. Not against the top teams in the comp, but still momentum, confidence, know the way that you're playing. They'll bite someone. If you're slightly off, they're capable of certainly upsetting you.
Well, it seems strange to talk about romance when the two of us are on air together, but the romantic side of me, Justin, would suggest that. I just would hope
Where's this going?
I just want the Drua to have a home game, mate. I thought that, or them in the finals. To me, that watching them play in Lautoka and just that experience there and what they add to and bring to the competition. Because this is before we get on to Moana Pasifika, which is a completely different story this year. I'm really hoping that the Drua might make it bloody tough for them now. They get MP in the next round, and you've got to expect them to win that game. And then they finish against the Reds, and that Reds could be like a quarterfinal before a quarterfinal.
Yeah, absolutely it could. I'm certainly with you on the romance thought process, mate. There's no doubt that they are just an absolute pleasure to watch when they get to Lautoka and they get the full crowd there. and they've already shown that they are more than capable on their day. If the bounce of the ball goes their way, they get good momentum. Beating the Crusaders, beating the Hurricanes. They are top quality teams. Should they get into the finals, if they got a game at home, which is highly unlikely, that would be simply outstanding, because they're just a pleasure to watch, and it just feels like rugby. It looks like everybody's enjoying themselves, players, supporters, the lot.
Justin MP, and I don't even know where to go with this, mate. The fact that Aaron Major has quit, that they're losing Levi Omer to the Crusaders, and that kind of goes against, it seems, everything that the whole point of putting the franchise in place was. But you've got 0-12 at the moment. We hear that they've got all kinds of financial struggles going on. Good God, what is the future of this franchise? And there are two parts to this question, mate. Is it the responsibility of Super Rugby as a whole to just underwrite them, to make sure that they can get up to a competitive level? I know that's not how professional sport works, but we've got to actually make some adjustments around this, don't we, if we want to be serious about including the island players and also what they bring to the competition?
Absolutely. We can't all of a sudden shut the door after opening it. There's no doubt the fact that there is an opportunity there to develop. There is a lot of talent that is still unnurtured, and for them to compete at the very highest level of rugby in Australasia in particular is just not fair. It's too hard of an introduction, particularly when you're not even playing a home game. And I certainly feel that there probably needs to be some thought process into, yes, looking at whether or not this was a success, and probably arguably it's not. But don't completely lose them out of the picture. I think a side, Moana Pasifika side, even a Drua side in the NPC is where it needs to go, so that those players just start to get hardened. The rugby's still at a really high level, and then they get to the point that at a later date, when they start to create some depth and talent, that we can reintroduce them into Super Rugby. Maybe that's something to think about.
And finally, I've got two topics to go, but one of them being the Highlanders. That Highlanders-Rebels game would have to be one of the worst games of rugby. In the end, I stopped watching it. I just couldn't actually watch it. It was just in terms of the lack of skill level for professional athletes, the amount of drop ball, and the referee didn't help, and I don't know what the hell was going on. Did you manage to do 80 minutes of it? I defy anyone to sit there. Oh, you called the bloody game.
You must have been really interested in that game, mate, or I wasn't doing a very good job at calling it.
Well, Cam, I tell you what, I've been at the wineries in Waiheke all afternoon with my son for his birthday, so that's how many eyes I was watching it with.
Yeah, been there and done that. Yep. No, absolutely, it was a hard old grind. Look, it had moments, and you sort of thought when it first started that the Highlanders were going to, the way they started, probably put them away quite comfortably, but they didn't, and some of their faults that have cost them all season started to sneak into their game. The fact that it went down, I guess, to a kick at the finish kept some drama and interest in the game, because nobody really knew who was going to win it. A lot of tit for tat that happened. But yeah, just two sides that have been struggling away all season. Had ambition to play, but they just too many errors, too many problems, with game plan. It was a tough old grind. No, those sides will be much better for having the season over and looking at improving their squads and thinking about next year.
So apologies, mate, because look, what I did was after we went back to the young boy, the oldest of the two, had rented a house for him and all his mates for the weekend, and so I went back there and I insisted on putting a tally on so I could watch a bit of the game. But they were all playing this. And in this drinking game I'd never seen before, where you line up about 5 or 6 cups, and it's kind of like basketball. You have to kind of drop it in the thing and then flick the cup up and scull it. So that's how I was watching the game through one of the... Yeah, brilliant.
I can't believe you never played beer pong before in your life, Marty. Come on.
I was trying to pretend that I didn't, because when you've got a whole lot of young lads around, you always got to pretend, what's this? I've never seen this before. How do you play this game? Good point. Okay?
Good point, yeah.
The old man's...
Sculling of beers involved.
Old man's got to come in with a burgle, mate.
Turn the TV on. You did the right thing. I need to watch the rugby. I need to do my research for my work week.
That's exactly it. Finally, and a serious question is, because this is where we need your expert eye on this, are you seeing enough from the New Zealand players that are playing at the moment, just in terms of how good we are individually, collectively, combination-wise? I know the World Cup's still a few months away, but we've all got one eye on this. Is the standard up there? Are you happy with it?
Yeah, there's certainly plenty of individuals out there playing really good rugby. Our biggest conundrum that is going to face our head coach, Ian Foster, and the selectors and his coaching staff is, are they prepared to have the courage to pick players who are playing outstanding rugby at the moment, but haven't been in their squad in the last couple of years. Because we've got to show the world something different, and that is different players and a different game plan. And if they don't have the courage to pick players, and they go back to resting on their laurels on players, they've been reliable, but these players that they feel are going to get the job done at a Rugby World Cup, then we're falling into a big hole. That's where they've got to get to, I think, as a mindset, because the talent is definitely there. It's about having the courage to pick it.
You're talking about being brave, mate.
Yep, absolutely. Being brave, and some of these players that are in top form at the moment, a lot of the world wouldn't have seen them at all, and they could really cause a lot of teams problems at the Rugby World Cup. Should we, like I said, have the ambition for them to be picked?
King golfer that you are, did you manage to watch any PGA over the weekend?
I did. Yep. Bloody hell! I had my money on Victor Hovland as well, and I thought he was going really well until he stuck that ball in the side of the bunker and pretty much lost his momentum from there. But, great performance.
I think it was Coleman I was watching on round 2 did exactly the same. And what it was, people, is that you're stuck in the bunker. You go to drive it out, but you actually get it wedged between where the grass hits the sand, and it kind of like disappears down a hole. And how the hell do you get... And then, of course, you got 19 rules guys with clipboards around you telling you got to have a club length there. Mate, you got to face 90 degrees to square to the hole and all of this kind of stuff. It was quite remarkable, but Koepka keeping his nerve, mate.
Yeah, he did, absolutely. And what an outstanding performance from Ryan Fox
again.
as well. He hasn't played any golf. He's been unwell, and I think he was tied for 23rd. Absolutely brilliant on a really difficult golf course. So great to see he's continuing his great form.
Justin, always a pleasure, mate. Justin Marshall with us. Joins us every single Monday to review the Super Rugby round. We're really fortunate that Justin gives us so much time.